So we're gonna do a tier list for the power level of the heroes in Season 7 Overwatch 2. And we're gonna go off of non-GM level. So obviously I've played in everything recently from Diamond to GM. I genuinely believe that outside of like the higher echelons of GM, everything else is basically just boils down to the same kind of crap. So I'm gonna go more gold to master elo. So I think ST are like undisputably good in every situation, roughly, and almost every map. The number one that strikes to my mind is still Bastion. I know they nerf Bastion, but it is the ease of value on top of the value itself that puts him in S tier. Like, you don't need to have any semblance of tactical ability. Just wait for the tank to commit, you pop your Bastion mode, you gun him down, move on. Still by far, I think, the best DPS and probably the best hero outside of maybe the support category. Scanning my eyes to see what else I consider S tier. I think BAP is S tier. Now, there's not a lot of people in the metal ranks who play BAP very well, but I still think that if you're somebody who's looking to climb, all you need to do with BAP is up your APM, right? So you just need to make sure you're weaving in your healing and your damage a lot more. Immortality is kind of hard. If you use it too early, you're still saving someone from potential death or making the enemy team shoot an immortality field. So I think just the value, the raw value he can put out, damage, healing. He has 3 lives, essentially. You have your health pool, you have your shift to heal up, you have your mortality. He remains one of the best supports out there, and very flexible as well. You can play him in poke, you can play him in brawl. You can even sort of make him work in a dive, because I know people in uncoordinated ranks, you know, diamond and plat and master. If they're gonna run a dive, it'll be like one dive tank, one guy who's playing Souljour or something. So you can still make the BAP work, I think. I think Lifeweaver is S tier. Again, I think for the ease of access that you get with Lifeweaver, I think he's S tier because they've overtuned him to a crazy degree. So his healing output is the best in the game. The life grip is, again, hard to mess up. It's got to pull it on a teammate. You can yoink them out of ultimates. There's not that many ultimates left in Overwatch 2 that are going to affect 5 teammates at once. Most of the time, an ultimate is targeting 1 to 2 people. So if you can save 1 person out of that, already huge value. His self-sustain is huge again now. His ability to dash away, the pedal platform. And on top of that, the tree now is a better version of what Rally used to be. So there's like no part of his kit that's bad. His damage has gotten really good as well. So he actually does a lot of good poke damage. So if in doubt, you can just pump a bunch of damage into the enemy tank and help with that side of the thing as well. So for how easy that is to deliver, Lifeweaver S tier. I'm going to put Orisa in S tier as the only tank in S tier, even though the tank role is kind of weak. And I don't think she's in S tier for carrying. She's in S tier because of the brainlessness of the ranked player who will shoot the Orisa. Orisa pushes her buttons. Orisa will not die. Screams at team, why is Orisa not dying? Okay, I think for now I'm happy with that as S tier. So A tier will define as very good, great value. They might even have a higher value ceiling than some of the ones in S tier, but again, we're assuming somewhere between gold and master, so the players are not min-maxing the heroes. So still very strong, but not necessarily as easily valuable as the others. I think we'll start with Ana and Iliari, the 2 supports here, and also Kiriko. I think they must be put here because they're all basically on the fringe of S tier. The only reason I haven't put them S tier is because I don't often see players get huge value from the heroes, even when they could. With Ana, I still think people are still surprisingly bad at finishing elims, which I think she's great at. Nade usage is often very passive instead of trying to be aggressive with it. And sleep darts are often just chucked at tanks, which is fine, but can often be more valuable elsewhere. Iliari, yes, there will be mechanical problems for people playing her in, you know, gold and plat, but I will say that I don't think people have spent enough time playing her yet. I think if they played her a bit more, they would see that her primary fire is quite generous, so you will actually hit more shots than you think you would because the primary fire hitbox is so big. And the pylon, if placed with even vague competence, will not get destroyed outside of GM. So, and Kiriko for her brainlessness. Kiriko, I have noticed this very strongly as I've played recently. So you will very frequently see Kiriko players just deep in Narnia, no clue where they are, no clue what their teammates are doing, but they have a Suzu and a Swift Step to build them out. For that reason, I still think her value is really high because you can make a lot of mistakes and erase them very quickly. All elements of her kit are still very good. She still has a great time to kill and a generous projectile hitbox is so big. Suzu is still great, still hard to mess up. It's easy value. Kitsune Rush is still great. One thing I will mention is please stop fighting into Kitsune Rushes. I see this all the time. Players, when they hear an enemy Kitsune Rush, they just seem to run into the Kitsune Rush. Please just try and run away from the Kitsune Rush if your team is not committed, which Usually is what's happened. He pops her ult first. Just run away. It's okay. You don't have to fight in the little path that she's drawn. I will put Zarya here now in the A tier, just because I do still think that Orisa and Zarya remain the most straightforward tanks to play and survive the mass amounts of crowd control thrown at you. She's still very good. I've been playing her a decent amount this season, especially on brawly maps. Still has the potential to carry a lobby. Obviously, the reason I'm not putting her S tier is because I think, A, I don't think she's that strong. I think tanks in general just get shut down a little bit. I think a lot of players still don't really understand how to play around a Zarya, and I still think she gets exposed for her range weakness quite a lot, and players are pretty bad at that. Now, let's talk about some of the DPS, because we haven't really mentioned too many. I still think Torb is A tier. I think people are underrating Torb. I think what we're seeing right now, we're seeing a lot of meta diversity, as we often do at the start of a new season. But I've been here enough times to know that the longer the season goes on, the more and more people will default to the things that get easiest value, and Torb remains that. Torb still has plenty of things that make him great. Turret still shuts down flankers completely, you know, forces tracers to like burn a recall, zones out Genjis. It's still good damage output in anything outside of GM, right? In normal play, it's still gonna get loads of damage. People aren't gonna shoot it. He himself still remains very hard to kill. He's got a tank HP pool, basically. So I think people are underrating Torb a little bit. I still think he's very strong. I hope you don't play Torb, but I think if you did, you would have fun. I'm going to put Pharah in A tier. Not because I see a lot of players outside of GM run Pharah well, because I think they should. Considering the strongest hit scan are in the support category, the vast majority of supports in average play do not shoot, do not do a lot of damage. I think if more people spent their time playing a bit of Pharah, I think they would find remarkable success in how little people contest her. Now, of course, the mercy element comes in. How often do you have a mercy pocket versus how often you don't, which makes it vastly more difficult. But mercy is also a very popular hero, so the chances that you get someone either playing mercy or willing to play mercy are probably quite high too. So I think Pharah, again, kind of a little bit underrated. Yes, she has counters, but the counters are harder to execute in normal play. I'm going to put Souljour in A tier as well. I think people have forgotten about the power of Souljour. Obviously, again, another hero that benefits vastly from Mercy Pocket. But even without Mercy Pocket, the character's just so all-round, so well-rounded. You don't have to be absolutely elite. Especially the ultimate, I think, is very generous. You can just right-click spam body shots and kill 2 to 3 people, really, realistically, should they be in position or out of position and you're in position. I think Winston will go in A tier. Not because I think he is reliably dominant, because he definitely isn't. Of the tank heroes, he is one of the easiest to counterpick. But he has great value potential if people were able to play him a little bit better. The problem for Winston lies that the #1 hero in the S tier kind of screws him over. So if they have a Bastion, or if they switch to Bastion, you're probably screwed. There's other heroes too that kind of really mess with Winston, the shotgun heroes, namely the shotgun heroes. Diva also really, if she just decides to chase around the map, it's going to be really hard. I still think that because he's auto-aim, as long as you kind of vaguely understand your limits, you should be able to get a lot of value. I'm putting Moira in A tier because, again, easy value. I don't think she's necessarily the best pick, by far from it, honestly. I think in the support category, the others I've listed are all better. However, if it comes to lacking mechanics, you're kind of looking at Lifeweaver and Moira. Lifeweaver is the better pick. Moira is the more aggressive pick, and the more I hate my team and I want to go get some kills for myself pick. And honestly, all the way up to GM, people don't know how to duel a Moira. They will just lose the duel. Like these other supports that you see, Ana, Bap, Kiriko, Iliari, I think outside of GM, most of the players lose the duel. Maybe in Master they start winning the duel, but certainly I think Diamond and below, the Moira gets into the backline, she probably beats them in a duel, which is great. And I still think there's plenty of other utility around. Coalescence is still a very reliable ultimate, especially with the Fade cleanse that you can do. So this tier, I'm calling it Specialist because if you are actually genuinely dedicated to this hero and good, you will farm. But I very rarely see people dedicate themselves to these heroes in particular outside of GM. So I'm going to put... Actually, the first hero I'm going to put in here is Doomfist. I think Doomfist is actually an amazingly fun hero. I've had a great time playing Doomfist. I think he's massively underrated for the players who don't know how much he can take over a lobby when not hard countered. Now the problem is, he will get hard countered, but that's ultimately cannot be escaped from any tank. And quite often, people in the metal ranks, people in average level play, don't really hard counter him well enough. So I think he's flexible. You can kind of play him as a very upfront brawly tank. You can kind of play him as a more backline assassin. He really has a huge presence on the game, which is why I think you should really try and consider learning him. Because he can really, like, unlike most other tanks, he can really bully multiple people at the same time. You know, like his punch, when you get the empowered punch, you can bully entire teams at the same time. And if you cycle your cooldowns well, you can go watch my coaching with Samido or my 7-day Doomfist video if you want to understand how to do such a thing. But the combo of, like, you punch, you block, you build another punch, you punch him again. The enemy team is going to be like, what the hell? This Doomfist is constantly displacing us, constantly wrecking us. Why are we losing? So I think Doomfist underrated as hell. I think same for Genji. Not in the sense that he's going to dominate, but when you're good at Genji, I think you could navigate a lot of things that make him problematic. And there are a lot of Genji one-tricks in Plat, or Genji specialists, let's say, in Plat. Especially the Nano Blade. Obviously, I still think people are bad at shutting down Nano Blade. So, Genji good. He's got a pretty good power level, actually. Kind of sleeper power level. Sigma. I think, again, Sigma is a flexible tank. You are good at navigating his cooldown. He's going to get a lot of play at the highest level, but I also think even at the average level of play, you would find that he has a lot of answers to things that are generally annoying. So, for example, he's a great answer to Bastion. He's a solid answer to Orisa. And those are the things you're going to probably get C pick the most. The only thing he really gets suffered by is a hard dive, but people almost never do a hard dive in average level play. So you'll find that in most situations, if all you do is just play your own life and just keep doing damage, like don't worry too much about your team, find a spot and just keep pumping out damage, you'll see that like Sigma is super survivable and super reliable for the damage output. Same for Tracer, high skill ceiling. The problem for her is that there's a lot of things that just one-shot her, and that makes her life very tough. Obviously, a good Tracer will win most games, but that's hard to do in average level games. So same idea with Widowmaker, I think. Like when good, when someone really knows what they're doing, they'll probably have a lot of impact, but Widowmaker probably a bit more situational than Tracer. I'm actually going to put Sombra in here as well. I'm not a huge fan of her power level right now. I don't think it massively needs to change. I think that she's a bit more feast and famine. She can most definitely like spawn camp people now a lot harder. And I think the 1v1s are easier is often a way to climb out of the metal ranks, is to kind of like just duel people and get killed. Again, I think Sombra is like a very underplayed hero in general. I don't think many people flex onto Sombra. So generally, you're only going to see Sombra players go for her. And I still think there's like just better DPS to pick in terms of raw value. I'm going to put Jun Queen in specialist as well. I almost never see someone play Jun Queen in anything below even Master, I think. But I still think she has that Overwatch 2 tank feeling of I can just kind of kill stuff myself. And that's all that matters. Problem for Jun Queen is the difficulty of the hero versus the value of the hero are just way higher, right? So Jun Queen, super hard hero. I'll put Sim in situational. I think Sim still has that element of there are certain maps where she's great, certain maps where she's not so great. I think the specialist will find value for her in every situation, but I think there still remains the, well, I put some turrets down and nobody shot them. And they don't do as much as they used to, but I still think that there are situations where in choky maps, Symmetra is a very strong pick. So I think I'm going to put Reinhardt in like decent. I put him in decent because honestly, there are games where the free shield, because of the sheer stats of this guy, like he has so much HP and so much shield. The problem is that the things in S tier gatekeep him. So Bastion and Orisa gatekeep him very hard. So if those weren't as strong as they were, I think Ryan would be a lot stronger and a lot more playable. The problem is that if they switch to Bastion Orisa, or if they are playing Bastion Orisa, you just are a useless hero now and there's literally nothing you can do. Like, I don't think the greatest Ryan player could get a lot of value going up against a vaguely competent Bastion Orisa. I'm going to just throw in now a bunch of DPS here. Cassidy, Hanzo, Junkrat, Souljour, Ashe. I think they can all go here. I think Echo... I would put Echo in the specialist, but I don't even think people specialize in Echo. Like, I think maybe she must be one of the least picked heroes out there. I'm putting all these heroes in here because they're like always gonna get you value. They're not bad. They're never a bad pick. Cassidy, Hanzo, Junkrat, perhaps a bit more situational than the others, but certainly Cassidy, Hanzo, Souljour, Ashe will always do pretty good. They're never really bad picks. I don't think they're particularly overly strong. Again, because I don't think they're free value compared to some of the things above them. Echo, like I said, still a very strong hero, and I think when pocketed with the flyer, like, you know, the Mercy Echo is very, very strong, but I just almost never see people play Echo. Until she probably gets Giga busted, I don't think people outside of GM are going to start playing Echo. I'm going to put Diva here too. I would put her higher, like in terms of power level, I think she's in A tier. The reason I'm putting her only as low as decent is because of how poorly people understand how to play Diva outside of GM, even in GM. A lot of Divas will just kind of get lost because sometimes the mobility can be a curse, right? Sometimes the boosters can be a curse. Diva requires a lot of like subtlety where you kind of like either completely brainless and you're just picking Diva to chase the Winston around, or you're left in this middle ground where you have to make a lot of decisions all the time. And more often than not, I just see Diva players commit boosters, try to kill something that isn't killable. Now they're stranded. They're characters that's basically like very vulnerable. And especially if they're running like a Zarya or something, you just get shredded. So I think that she is a decent pick, but just the fundamental misunderstanding around the hero is why I would say not stronger. I'm gonna put Mercy in decent as well. Like I think Mercy, not particularly strong, not particularly weak. Think that she doesn't, I didn't put her higher because I don't think she herself can kind of elevate the impact of her own gameplay that much, right? You still remain relatively dependent on your teammates. The pocket heroes aren't overly strong right now, right? I think if you pocketed a Bastion, you just farm, but still, it's not like Pharah Mercy season. It's not Souljour Mercy season at the moment. You're not just going to get a free win for picking Mercy. There might be comps she's bad in. I think most people are playing cluelessly anyway, so even if you just heal botted your tank, it wouldn't be the worst thing. Ratra is indecent. Ratra is decent, I think, because he still has good qualities, but it just feels like why pick Ratra in any situation, right? Like I feel like there's better tanks to pick in the situations that you would pick Ratra. I think if you just want to survive, pick Orisa. If you just want to brawl, pick Zarya. If you want to poke, pick Sigma. And I think it's very rare that you're looking for the flexibility to switch between all of them and in the middle of a fight. You know, you can just go switch and spawn. I'm gonna put Brig in situational. I would put her in decent because I think her power level is good. It's just in normal level play, people just toss with Brig. They just bash into a Reinhardt and die. And they kind of try and force the Brig into places she doesn't need to be. You're probably just better off playing Brig if you're trying to be like anti-dive and stick to that. I think for the players who know how to play her, there's a lot more room to play her. Most people don't, so don't waste your time. I think similarly, Lucio and Zen. The higher you go, the more value you can get of Lucio, because at the highest level of play, the speed boost still remains awesome, but I almost never see people capitalize on that outside of GM. In average level gameplay, people are very rarely like trying to even do anything cohesive. So if you're just gonna sit and heal, pick other supports. And Zenyatta, I think, is actually great. I've been playing a decent amount of Zenyatta this season, but unfortunately very squishy. And if you're going to play Zenyatta, you probably just want to maybe play Illari or Bap instead. The downsides of Zenyatta don't really outweigh the potential incentive to pick him. Mei, I think, also situational. I think she's just kind of brainless, and a particularly brainless game. Or if it's a map that's choky, again, Lijiang Control Center always comes to mind. Mei will just get you super loads of free value. Problem is that if you're trying to force her on situations where she's not good, similar to Symmetra, you're gonna have to invest a lot of time, energy, and creative thinking that otherwise may as well just have been spent on a different character. I think I'm gonna put Reaper, Hog, and Ball just bad. Reaper, I think, is probably the worst DPS in Overwatch 2 at the moment, just because there isn't a single good situation I can think of that you should pick Reaper. If you're trying to bust a tank, pick Bastion, because Bastion has a longer range damage and honestly more damage and more survivability and a better ultimate. If you're trying to like flank, there's way better flankers. And Reaper like he's not even guaranteed to win a 1v1 at his range. That's how bad he is, right? It's like at long range, forget it. He's literally a completely useless character, poked out very easily. Should you even make your way into the back line and try to assassinate someone, you're not even like guaranteed to win the duel. And if you're just trying to chase a Winston around, just pick Bastion. Again, it's like Bastion just does everything the Reaper would do, but twice as good. So I think just objectively bad. Same goes for Ball in that I think he's in a better power state than Reaper, but it's like what situation was Ball to play that Doomfist or Winston or Diva isn't to play, right? If you're trying to like be survivable, again, Orisa, Zarya better. If you're trying to get into the backline, Doomfist better, I'd say. If you're just trying to like disrupt, again, Doomfist better. So I just think Ball right now, like there's no reason to pick this character. And even if you were a specialist, even if you like dedicated your time to Ball, why would you do that when you could just a similar hero that does more? And Hog, just please stop playing Hog. Just wait for the rework. We'll see what happens partway through the season when they rework Hog. This character, like, why are you picking this character? This reason to pick Hog was that, hey, this is a independent hero who doesn't need his team and you can go get kills for yourself. Now there's just tanks that do that anyways, right? Like, Jun Queen's just a better version of Hog. Admittedly, Jun Queen's a lot harder than Hog, but even other tanks just can kill things better than Roadhog, who gets shut down so easily. Just bad. Just wait for the rework. So I think that is my tier list for power level of Overwatch 2 heroes in Season 7 outside of GM. So this is like the gold to master level.